This is Unit 1, Section 1.01, Intro to Working with Data. Today I am, as in you the student, will be using tools to convert numbers into different forms and read a number line so that you can change numbers from fractions to decimals to percentages and plot them on a number line. I will know I have it when I can convert numbers between forms using specific tools and techniques and identify those numbers on the number line. Specific techniques we're going to be looking at is 1B, 1C, 1D, 1F. Okay, fractions, decimals, percentages. Fractions, decimals, and percentages are just different ways of showing the same value. So decimal, for this example, 0.5 is the exact same value as a fraction of 1 over 2, 1 divided by 2, which is the exact same value as the percentage of 50%. Each one of these are interchangeable. They mean the exact same thing. Depending on the context of the problem or the context of the situation, you may prefer to use percentages for one scenario. You may prefer to use decimals for another scenario. Whatever the case is, they're the exact same numbers. It just depends on what scenario you're using them in, what the context is. Let's start with fractions. Quick reminder about fractions, parts of a fraction. The top number that you see right here in red for 1/2, 1, is called the numerator. That's the top part of the fraction bar. The bottom part of the fraction bar, this blue 2, is the denominator, okay, the bottom part of the fraction. So we're going to change fractions to decimals in our first handful of conversions. So to convert from a fraction to a decimal, we're simply going to divide the numerator by the denominator. So in the case of 1/2, to change it from a fraction to a decimal, simply divide those two numbers. 1 divided by 2 will give you 0.5. Let me give you another example. Let's say I have 3/4. Okay, I'm going to take out my calculator, whatever your calculator is. Could be Desmos, could be the TI-84, doesn't matter. And you're simply going to divide them. Okay, there we go. 3 divided by 4, 0.75, and that would be your decimal equivalent to that fraction. 0.75 or 0.75, either one is correct. Typically, if there's a 0, we just chop it off and use the 0.75, but either one is an acceptable answer. Okay. So for each of these fractions, I would like for you to convert them into its decimal form. Okay, and if you are on Class Kick while y'all are watching this video, you can also check your answers, make sure you're doing everything correctly. If you type into these boxes, it will tell you immediately after you've finished typing in your answer whether you are correct or not. Okay, so if you would like to try that, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show y'all what the answers are. So starting with 3/8, 3/8. I'm going to plug that into my calculator. 3 divided by 8. And that should give you 0.375. I'm going to do the same thing with 4/5. 4 divided by 5. And that will give you 0.8. Okay. And then 1/3, 3/4, and 1/4. You'll do the exact same thing. So I'm just going to reveal the answers over here on the right. You can move this box if y'all are on Class Kick doing these problems. 1/3 will be a repeating decimal, 0.33333 repeating. You can chop it off at 1, 2, 3 decimal places. It doesn't matter. Again, it depends on the context of the problem. But 0.3333 is 1/3 in decimal form. We did this in the previous slide. 3/4 or 3/4 is 0.75, 0.75. 1/4 or 1/4 is 0.25. That's it for this U try. Okay, now going from decimals to percentages. Okay, so we just went from fractions to decimals, and now we're going to continue by going from decimals to percentages. I'm going to show you all two ways: the calculator way and the shorthand way, or the shortcut way, using the using the trick by moving the decimal place to the left a few times. So first, let's talk about the calculator way. To convert from a decimal to a percentage, we're going to multiply the decimal by 100 and then attach the percent symbol. So in the case of 0.5, which was 1/2 as a fraction, to change this to its decimal form, or I'm sorry, to its percentage form, we're going to take its decimal form and multiply by 100, and then attach a percentage symbol, and then you're done. So just to show you on the calculator how that looks, take 0.5 or 0.50, whatever you want to call it, multiply one by 100, and you will get their percentage conversion, which in this case is 50%. Another example, let's say I have 0.81 as a decimal that I want to change into its percentage form. Again, simply multiply by 100 to get its percentage form. So that would be 81% for its percentage form. Or we can just simply move the decimal point to the right twice. I believe I said to the left a little bit earlier. That was incorrect. We move it to the right twice when changing from decimals to percentages. So in this case, 0.5 was our decimal. If I were to move it 2 places to the right, 1, 2, there would be some missing numbers here. I would fill it in with a 0 and then attach a percentage symbol. So this would be in its final form, 50% in percentage form. In the case of the 81 that we used in the previous example, let's say we had 0.81, we can change that to its percentage form by taking the decimal point, moving it to the right twice. There's no missing numbers or missing values in between our movements, so we don't have to do anything here. We just simply have to attach the percentage symbol, and that is our answer. Okay, either one will work using the calculator or using the shortcut, as long as you get it right, of course. Okay. For this part, I would like for y'all to go through the decimals and change them into their percentage forms. Now, don't forget, when you're typing into these boxes or when you're doing these problems on your own with a piece of paper or whatever, make sure you attach the percentage symbol. That's super important. Attach the percentage symbol for your answers. Okay? So if you can, I would like for y'all to pause the video and try this on your own. Otherwise, I'm going to show you how to do everything. So for 0.375, I'm going to multiply by 100. And my percentage answer is 37.5%. Okay, now with the 0.8, I'm going to do this again by just multiplying by 100. So 0.8 times 100. And I get 80%. So make sure you attach the percentage symbol at the end of your answer. Okay, I'm going to use the shortcut with 1/3, with 0.3 repeating. I'm going to take the decimal point and move it to the right twice. So once, twice, right here. And I'm going to go ahead and round this to 1 decimal place so I don't have to put a whole bunch of 3's in my answer. So the number next to it is smaller than 5, so I have to round down, meaning that all of these are just going to turn into zeros. This will be 33.3% as the final answer. I'm going to use a shortcut again with 0.75. So just to show y'all how to do this, 0.75, move the decimal point to the right twice. I don't need to fill in any numbers, so that's that. Just make sure you attach the percentage symbol. And then same thing with 0.25, move it to the right twice. No issues there, so we're just going to put 25% as our final answer. And again, if you're on ClassKick, you can move the black box there to see and check all your answers. Make sure you're doing this correctly. And that's it. Okay. Percentages to decimals. So now we went from fractions to decimals and decimals to percentages. Now we're going to start going backwards to attain the other two. So we're going to start from percentages and now go back to decimals. The way we do this by using the calculator or the shortcut, I'm going to show you all the calculator first, is that when we went from decimals to percentages, we multiplied by 100 to get to the next form. However, we're going backwards now. Excuse me. So to get from percentages to decimals, instead of multiplying by 100, we're going to do the opposite by dividing by 100. So let's say I have 50%. Now I want to change that back into its decimal form. I'm going to take the calculator, take 50% divided by 100, and now it's back in its decimal form as 0.5. Another example, let's say I have 81% from one of our previous problems, and I want to change this back to its decimal form. Simply divide by 100, and you will get to its decimal form, 0.81. Or you can use a shortcut. So let's say we have 50%, and we want to change this back into its decimal form. Well, its current decimal is right here after the 0. Now, instead of going to the right twice using the shortcut, since we're going backwards from percentages to decimals, we're going to move the point to the left twice. And of course, if there's any issues, we make sure to correct them. If there are any blank spaces with no numbers, make sure you put a number there, the 0, to understand where the place values are. In this case, we have 0.50 as our decimal. And to simplify it even further, that 0 doesn't really need to be there. So really we just have 0.5 in decimal form. Just to show you another example using the shortcut. Let's say I have 81% that I want to change back into its decimal form. I take its current decimal place, move it to the left twice, fill in any zeros that may need to be filled in. In this case, there isn't. So I just simply have 0.81 as my answer without the percentage symbol. Because again, we're going from percentages to decimals. So the percentage symbol needs to be taken out. And that's how to convert percentages to decimals. Okay, for you, try number 3. I want y'all to do that exact same thing for these 5 different percentage problems. I want y'all to change the percentage to decimal form by either using the shortcut or dividing by 100. Remember, the shortcut is moving its current decimal place to the left twice. And if there are any zeros to fill in, make sure you fill those zeros. So pause the video and try that on your own. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and explain how to do these. Okay, so we already did 50% from the previous problem, so I'm just going to fill that in. That's just 0.5. Let's look at 12.5%. I'm going to do this using the calculator first. So 12.5 divided by 100. And our decimal is 0.125. Okay, 3%. I'm going to use the shortcut in this case. So its current decimal place needs to be moved to the left twice. Notice there's a gap here that doesn't have a value. So you need to fill that value in with a 0. And our decimal answer will be 0.03. 75%. I'm going to use the calculator for that. 75 divided by 100. Our decimal conversion is 0.75 from percentage to decimal, 0.75. I'm going to use the shortcut with 25%. So its current decimal place needs to be moved to the left twice. No gaps to fill in, so simply 0.25. And that's it for these problems. For you, try number 3. Okay, now decimals to fractions. I'm going to be showing y'all 2 different ways to do this using the TI-84 and Desmos. If you ever forget how to do either one of these, I do have instructions, step-by-step instructions in the class kick notes that I have given to y'all. So just go to page 5 on the Unit 1 notes and you will see them when you scroll down, starting with Desmos, and then you'll see the TI-84 underneath. Okay, so for this example, I'm going to show y'all using the Desmos calculator how to change it. So you're going to type in whatever the decimal is. In the case of this example, it's 0.65. So 0.65 gets typed in, and then you're going to see this circle with the fraction symbol on there. Click it, and it'll give you the conversion in reduced form, if it has a reduced form, of what the fraction should be. 13/20. And that's it using Desmos. So again, just to show y'all one more time. This circle right here, circle with the fraction symbol, with the box line box, that's the fraction symbol. You're going to click it, and it should be highlighted now and show you at the bottom right of this line what the reduced simplified fraction will be. 13/20. Okay, if you're wondering why it's 13/20 and not 65/100, again, it is a simplified fraction. There are things that are in common with the top number and bottom number that can cancel out, that will reduce it into its simplest form to make 13/20. Okay? The calculator does that on its own, so you don't have to worry about doing all this by hand. But yeah, that's the Desmos way. Now, let's say I want to do this using the TI-84. If y'all have a TI-84, I'm going to use the same exact number right here, but I'm going to show you all the steps. Step 1, you're going to enter the decimal into the calculator. So using this TI-84, 0.65, I'm going to enter it there. Then you're going to look for the math button underneath the alpha button, which should be green on y'all's calculator. The green alpha button, underneath it, it says math. Click math and then press enter, enter. And it'll turn it into its simplified fraction form. So from decimal to fraction, it'll reduce it into its simplified form, and that'll be your answer. 13/20, just like what we had over here. All right. Now, these next 5 problems, I want y'all to, with whichever calculator y'all want to use, change these decimal forms into their fraction forms. When you type it into these boxes, you're going to have to use one of the slash keys on y'all's keyboard, the /, which should be on the question mark, I believe. And if you're looking at the number pad, should be right above the 8 on your number pad. So, right now, I would like y'all to pause this video, try these problems on your own. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show y'all how to do this. So I'm going to show a few with the TI-84 and then a few with the Desmos. So I'm going to start with the TI-84. 0.5, I'm going to type 0.5 into the TI-84, math, enter, enter, and my fraction should be 1/2. 1/2. Let me write that a little bit better. 0.125. Again, type 0.125, then press math, enter, enter, and you'll get its reduced fraction, 1/8. 1/8. All right, let me show you all the next two using Desmos now. So with 0.03, type it in, click this circle with the fraction symbol on it, and it'll give you the reduced fraction. 3, well, if it has any reduced, if there's anything to reduce from it, which there isn't on this fraction. So 3/100. Okay, with 0.75, with Desmos. So 0.75, click the circle, and you will get a reduced fraction of 3/4. Now I'm going to do the last one with Desmos. So let's say we have 0.25. Click the button. 1/4 is our reduced fraction. Okay, and that's it for you. Try number 4. Coordinates on a number line. A coordinate is a number that locates a point on a number line. Before I do that, let me erase these. So again, a coordinate is a number that locates a point on a number line. If a point is not on a labeled tick mark, use the number of equal sections between the labeled tick marks to determine the point's coordinate. Because not every point is going to be on a whole number. Sometimes you're going to have to interpret where that point is depending on a number of things, depending on whether there's tick marks involved, depending on whether its overall position is over a halfway point or under a halfway point, whatever. Okay, it's your job to figure out what that number is using different types of interpretations. So this number line, for example, has negative numbers and positive numbers. Sometimes there's tick marks in between these number lines, but we don't know what these values are. So it's going to be your job to figure out what these values represent by doing some quick math here. Otherwise, you would just kind of be guessing about where that half point will be and whether it's below it or above it to give your guess as to what that decimal point is. Okay, but in our next few examples, we have tick marks in between. We just need to figure out what those values are. Okay, so in this example, let's pretend these numbers are not there. I'll erase them in a bit. We have the number 8 and we have the number 9. And we have several tick marks in between 8 and 9. We have point A right here. We don't have a clear defined reference for what that decimal point will be, but we can do some quick math to figure out where it could be located. Okay, and we use these tick marks to do that. All right, so first thing we're going to do to figure out where A is located is count the amount of spaces we have. And we do that by looking at the tick marks. And counting how many spaces we have in between from one tick mark to the next. Starting with 8, we have 1 space, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sections between 8 and 9. So these 5 different sections make up the whole entire unit from 8 to 9. So we have 5 different sections. We have 5 sections. Step 2, we're now going to write a fraction that represents that section. So 5 sections make up the whole entire thing. Well, one of these makes up 1/5 of that whole. So in this next step, step 2, that's why you see 1/5 represented 5 different times in accordance to the amount of spaces. Again, we got 5 different spaces, so that means that each space represents 1/5 of the whole. Next thing we're going to do is figure out where A is located. You can do this one of several ways. We know 1/5 if we were to type that into our calculator. One divided by 5 is 0.2. So each section represents 0.2. So we count up however many sections we have. We have 1, 2, 3 sections until we get to the A. So we simply count. 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, and there we go. A is located at 8.6 on the number line. Okay, another way you can interpret this is instead of just converting it to its decimal right away, we can figure out just how many parts of the whole we have for A. So we have 1, 2, 3 different parts. So the fraction for A is 3/5. Okay, we know 3/5 is 0.6. So that's 0.6 on top of the 8 that we already have, that were on the number line. So we're going to add 0.6 to that, and we have 8.6. Just another way to think about this if you didn't immediately think of converting 1/5 into its decimal form. If you keep it in its fraction form, add up the parts, divide the fraction, and then attach it to the 8, 8.6 is what we have for this example. Okay, and that's how to interpret these number lines to find the exact location of a certain point. Okay. You try number 5. I would like for y'all to go through each of these steps 1 through 4, to find the location of point Q. So here's the number line. We have 3 at one end, 4 at the other. We have several tick marks and spaces. You need to figure out where exactly Q is located on the number line, using the exact same way that we did with the previous example. Step 1, determine the number of equal sections. Step 2, write the fraction that represents a section, 1 over whatever. Change the fraction to a decimal. And then determine the point's coordinate by figuring out how many of those decimals We have to add to get to Q from 3. And then type your final answer. You can move this box to see if you're doing this correctly, but only if or only after you have tried. So try not to look at this until you have tried out the problem to then see where you made the mistakes and then correct yourself accordingly. Does it no good to look at the answer and then try it? You got to try it first so then you can make the corrections to your mistakes. That helps with the learning process much better than just simply looking at the answers. All right, so at this moment, pause the video and try to go through those steps to find the location of Q. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show you how to do this. All right, so determine the number of equal sections. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 equal sections. So the fraction for one piece of this is going to be 1 over 8. 1 over 8. All right, now to type the decimal answer to that, let's plug this into our calculator. 1 divided by 8, 0.125. So I'm going to have to add 0.125, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times to get to Q. So it doesn't matter how you do this. You can just add 0.1257 times if you really wanted to. Or, if you know your math, I have to jump 7 times. So 0.125 times 7 is 0.875. We already started at 3, so my final answer should be 3.875. 875. That's where Q should be located. 3.875. And then you can move this box to see if you're doing everything correctly. And that's it. That's it for you try number 5. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know. My phone number and email are there. So if you need more help, you can either text or call me at that number after 5 p.m. Usually don't answer very well, but if it's an emergency, I will. And you can always email me at my teacher email, egarzajr@tivahallsville.org. Okay, otherwise, I will see y'all in class. Take it easy, everybody.